Hi guys, welcome back to TedRedwoodFM. I am Ed and we are at the end of Season 10 of FC Oss today. So it was the final season in the series actually. The last game we played online was the Bayern Munich semi-final in the Champions League. And I said I'd stream until the end of that, and that was that basically. We lost. It was a bit of a drab showing in the second leg, which is a real shame, but considering it's our first time getting through to the knockout stages of the Champions League, I think we did pretty well. We followed that up with a 3-2 win over Heracles. It was a kind of a changed lineup. We even had Riley Backboard come on for some game time, for example, just, you know, bring back a couple old faces. Michael Martyr's on the score sheet as well, which is nice. So that was that, and that was the end of the season. And the end of the season, obviously the end of the save. So what I'm going to do is this episode, I'm going to kind of just jump over a couple of things. I haven't really planned anything, but just go over a couple of aspects of Oss, what I've learned, just a couple of things that have happened in the 10 seasons that we have been competing, in addition to obviously covering the end of season stuff now and giving some thought into what we want to see going forward. So first and foremost, we have actually set a couple of records. So record low number of league draws for Oss. So I think we drew, what, 1 or 2 games? It's actually been about a week since I've done anything on this. How do I get there? I don't really want to cut any of this out, but it's not season preview, is it? I'm having an absolute nightmare. 1 draw, 2 losses, 94 points, which is incredible. So yeah, this season I really wish it was unbeaten and winning all the games. I think we could have done that, but there you go. So we lost to Vitesse and PSV, drew against Groningen, but beat everyone else. 119 goals scored in 34 games, so not quite 4 a game unfortunately, but not too far off really. Against 34, so 1 a game on average, goal difference of 85, so almost 3 per game, which is pretty cool. So yeah, really successful campaign, semi-final Champions League, can't really go too far wrong. In terms of some of the other items, we've got a best 11 here, which I think I'll go through, but I'll go through that in a minute. Where are they now, which is fine. End of season awards, Zuniga got 76%, which is a ridiculous amount. 10 and 9% were the other highest voted for players, so that all up 95% of the votes went to those 3 players. Zuniga getting 3/4 of all the votes overall, which is incredible. Goal of the season, young player of the season as well, and then Julio Cesar was signing of the season, which is kind of ridiculous considering he... Can I click anything? It's done that horrible thing, hold on. There you go, people are clickable now. Considering he's been here for 2 seasons already on loan, but he's only just joined permanently. His best season on paper, less clean sheets, but he's played less, so it kind of makes some sense. Well, he's conceded more on average, so I'm not really sure. I guess just better quality overall. So yeah, pretty decent. Team of the season, Cesar, Suzini, Munoz, Boghossian, Manuel, Ronaldo, Prazak, Ramiro, Gray, Zuniga and Buzek, which is fully expected because that was our first choice 11, just maybe with a couple players switched around. Season review, we won everything apart from the Champions League, which we went out in semi-final. Where are they now? 2020. I think that was the season we went up from the Japa League, so we will actually hold out on that one as well. Was that the season we went up? I'm not even sure. Team leaders, blah blah blah. End of season team meeting, which I'm not going to bother with because we're not going to be here. And then just some general updates. So let's have a look at some of the best 11 things. So I haven't actually looked at best 11 for such a long time, but if we go through the starting 11, Xavier Moose, absolute hero of the save, really. I should have kept him around longer because we've always struggled really for a decent backup keeper, one that's been happy enough to be a backup keeper and be solid. We've struggled with that massively, but he was just solid. I know his attributes aren't amazing, but it just made him into a solid keeper. He even made 3 appearances in the season that we won the league for the first time, and he did well. He started the season in between the sticks and did quite well. Since gone to play over 100 games for Roeselare in Belgium. We miss him, but that's fine. These things happen. Matusek is still at right back. I guess we had quite a bit of turnover in the last sort of 10 years, so it's not really a surprise. Almost 100 appearances for the club, though. Still at Napoli after only a season, although only making 4 appearances. Boghossian's still here, so he's doing pretty well. 166 appearances. He's just overtaken David Birmingham with 165. We've sort of been around the Netherlands a little bit. Went to PSV for 2.5, then Vitesse, then Heerenveen. Been making quite a few appearances for a number of years, though. Again, just really solid. I did see he's wanted. Is he on the list? No, he's not on the list. But he's wanted by Feyenoord here, just spending his life in the Netherlands, it seems. Another player I was a massive fan of, Gerald Vasquez at left back, made 209 appearances without ever scoring. He was One of these players I discussed on the stream recently, actually, I seem to find there's a load of fullbacks this year who are really strong. Not we can see everything now, annoyingly. I shouldn't have mastered attributes, but there you go, you live and learn. Really strong physically, good mentals, and pretty limited in terms of technical. So good tackling and marking, okay, sort of heading, jumping area for a fullback, but nothing else. So he was really good at what we told him to do, which is fullback on support, but made him act more like a defensive fullback. He was decent. I loved him. Riley backboard. I can't believe he only made 158 appearances. He is still here. He did make an appearance this season off the bench, got involved in some of the play against Heracles, but it wasn't to be. He won't last because I only brought him back as a look, he's still around type player. So we signed him on loan in the first season. Second season, put him into a centre mid attack role, and he dominated. We've played around with various formations in that third season, didn't quite reach the heights, but then he was back on form in that fourth. And as soon as we got to the Eredivisie, he didn't really do an awful lot. I know he played in the European playoff final thing to get into the third round or fourth round, wherever it was automatically, and he scored in that or the game before. I can't remember which one it was, but absolutely superb, brilliant player, love him. He did leave and then come back on a free, and then he's been out on loan to Achilles 29 for 3 straight seasons. Without, oh no, it's only 2 seasons, sorry, 2 seasons. Hero, I wish I played him more. But Hayen obviously still here. Rahak is out on loan. How's he done on loan at Hoffenheim? He's played a little bit, not really done an awful lot. Lionel Sonner, that's a name I haven't seen for a while. He's at Hertha Berlin. Has he just gone there? Possibly, probably not. No, he's gone there this season though, hasn't he? For 5.75, so it's not an awful amount of money, but it's better than nothing. And then up top, we've got 2 players who are currently here, Zuniga and Marta. So Zuniga, 81 appearances, 73 goals, 7.85 average, and then Marta, who probably is my favourite player of the whole, say 266 appearances, 159 goals, just a finishing machine really. Composure could have been better, all things could have been a bit better, but he's been consistently good over that time. We've had him since the 1920 season, so that's 8 full seasons now. It's probably this 22-23 season was the height of his powers. Started to rotate a bit as we started getting some other strikers, so these 3 seasons probably the best ones, though scoring 18 in your first season in the Eredivisie is no mean feat, just absolute monster for years. And what he hasn't done this year as much is place. Obviously he's not scored as many goals, got as many assists, but I think with more game time he would have been absolutely fine, but that we're trying to develop Zuniga and Buzek, so it is what it is. On the bench we've got Cesar, who's here, Prazak is still here, and that's it. The other ones who have gone, I think Azevedo's actually retired. Yeah, he retired. Bless him, he was never actually that good, but he played well above his station. Rodrigo Silva was my first new gen signing. Where's he at the moment? He's at Utrecht, and he's been there for a few seasons now. 3 seasons is that? Yeah. Feels like he's been gone a lot longer than that, but not appeared for the actual first team at Utrecht, so that's a shame. But again, he was incredibly limited on the right wing, but whatever we asked him to do was perfect. We asked him to run and cross, and that was about it, and good work rate as well really helped him. The 3 other players I have obviously fond memories of as well. We'll cover 2 of the Northern Irish lads. So Darren Kane, who is still at Palermo after how many years it's been, spent a season on loan with us a couple seasons back and didn't do an awful lot. But he's not really been given a chance at Palermo until last season when they've been relegated to Serie B. Although he's fallen out of favour again. But yeah, our first sort of big sale really, £8 million was a lot of money. We had like a 50% or 40% future sale. I thought there's no way he won't go for more money. If you look at his attributes, I thought just absolute top class, he could even improve, but never did, never got the game, so that was a shame. And then Andy Maxwell, the centre back, he was just solid, came in probably same time as everyone else. Yeah, I think that was our 3rd season in the Jupiter League. We went up in the 4th season here, and he was ever present for those 3 seasons, but then we had the issue where because of Brexit, a lot of the players whose contracts were running out, if they were from Northern Ireland or England, we had a few of them around that time, we had to pay them a minimum of something like 7k a week if they're over 20 years old in the Eredivisie, and I didn't really fancy it for Andy Maxwell then. He is, though, at LA Galaxy now, earning 6k a week, so he's doing alright, bless him. And then finally, the big money sale out of everyone, Arne Brekke Gretesen, 24 years old, so he's only gone a season to Valencia. He went out for 25 million and 50% of any future sale. He's done okay out there. He did score against us in the Champions League, but wasn't quite good enough to get him anywhere. He has won the UEFA Super Cup and the Club World Cup this season though, so just exemplifies the fact we knocked out the holders of the Champions League in the first knockout round, which is amazing. I think they haven't won the league this year. No, they came 3rd, so decent side Valencia in this, and Gretesen looks decent. The more I look at him now, I just wish he had a bit more in the dribbling, finishing department. Everything else is more or less there to be top class, but he's not quite going to reach that top bracket, I don't think. But decent player nonetheless, 50 goals in 102 games in the league, so can't go wrong. So the 2020 side, I believe, is the one they're referring to that actually got promoted, because we went up in the 2020 to 2021 season. So some of those guys in there, so Riley Backwood and Michael Marta are still here. Sam Taylor playing for Lazio, average. Sean Kelly at Celtic, someone who I've tried to bring back a few times, so he's actually scored against us, I think, this season or the previous season in the Champions League. Again, just goal-scoring machine, and that was about it. He wasn't with us for very long. 1 full season and half a season, and went off to Gladbach for 5.25. And I didn't know if I'd be able to replace him, but then Darren Kane stepped up his game. But the first 4 seasons of his career are just disgusting for goals. You think he would only have been about 20 at that point, even younger. So yeah, really decent from him. And then some old favourites, like we said, Birmingham, Maxwell, Silva. Olate is at Osasuna. The amount of times I've thought of bringing him back, he'd still do a job. I know for elite levels he wouldn't quite do it, but he'd be fine for most of the games, wouldn't he? He's on the list, so you never know, the next manager might fancy bringing him back. But good tackling, passing, all his mental's decent, really good physicals. He's a bit short, so obviously no heading or jumping, which is not what we require in a defensive mid these days. But he just used to split defences from deep. He was only with us for 2 seasons, which is crazy to think. but tore up the Upper League, did really well in the Eredivisie in our first season, so that was when we finished 5th or wherever it was and got European football. And then he just wanted to leave, so he sort of flitted around between a few clubs, not yet found a home, which is a shame for him. And obviously we covered Darren Kane. Apai is an interesting story. He brought him in as a left back. He wasn't, I think he only had tackling and technique with maybe worth 10 when we signed him at best. Everything else was crap. And then all the physicals and mentals were just lesser versions of what they are now. Came in as a left back, who now apparently he just isn't. He's only competent there. I just stuck him as a left winger and then started training there, and he had one really good season in the Upper League with us. Did okay in the Eredivisie as well, but we just didn't quite give him the opportunities because we were finding better players by that point. But 6 goals, 6 assists, doesn't sound great in 34, but did a really good job out there. And I think was pretty key to us actually get promoted that year. Offered us a lot of cover down the left side. Someone who's naturally a defender at winger obviously is going to be pretty solid. So yeah, that was fun to have him. Vasquez that we have looked at, as well as Moose, and then Bobby McKee. Wow, this is really blast from the past time. He came in. So many players, Northern Irish players, came in on frees or for like pretty much no money. He wasn't really getting game time and he wanted to play, so we ended up just letting him go to MVV for 350. He's actually gone for 210 and a part exchange to Roda, which is quite rare. But he has made appearances in the Eredivisie since leaving us, just not too many, but solid, just not spectacular. And a couple of nobodies that people won't remember at all. Ronan Casey and Max Atkin both still playing, but Azevedo, Connor Harrison and Mohamed Attai have retired. Attai was superb, came on loan for a couple of seasons, then for free. We ended up actually releasing him from his contract because he wasn't playing, but decent lad. So I'm just going to quickly jump through some of the older transfers out now and players that are notable in the save, just see where they are before going on to the state of world football and just some quick Oss background. So Neil Montgomery, who was with us in the Upper League and left it incredibly quickly, spent a full season with us and then left, did nothing, came back on loan, and I can't remember if that was a season we won the title for the second time. I feel like it may have been, but did pretty well for us when coming back on loan. Has done absolutely nothing since, but another sort of big money departure quite early. One of the more disappointing aspects of my time as Oss manager is the lack of decent youth products to come through. I feel like we've been hampered by the board not actually improving the youth facilities like I requested, what was it, like 4 seasons ago? One of the players that did come through quite early, Ton Holes, came through in our first season, I think, actually played 63 games for us, ended up at Excelsior, and has unfortunately retired. Retired at 21. Yeah, he's our first real prospect. He played quite a bit, centre mid, centre attacking mid, but just never made it, unfortunately. Another early big money exit from Oss, Robert Keenan, Northern Irish attacking mid. I think we signed him for 4k. Yeah, 4k in the Eredivisie. I think that was our first season up. Spent 2 seasons with us, was gearing for a move, managed to go to Arsenal. The board accepted 6 million above my head, which is a shame. He's sort of not played for Arsenal at all, but been on loan to Newcastle, Southampton and Fulham, where he has made appearances, where he has dropped down to the Championship this season, done okay. Never quite made it, but yeah, it was amazing for us for 2 seasons. We played in the centre mid attack role, and from deep was absolutely superb, would just arrive at the perfect times with all that pace and power. He was really something. It's just a shame he left. Pretty similar these days to someone like Verheyen, maybe slightly less technically gifted, but extremely physically gifted compared to him, so he would have done the job, but 6 million can't really go wrong in the Eredivisie. I always wanted to see how his career went. Antonio Saraiva came in at the same time as Keenan and was kept out of the squad, and in fact same window and everything, came in for free, made a lot of appearances, but yeah, as you can see, so many of them off the bench. And he's a lot more of a, oh god, go back to him. And he's a lot more of an attacking mid than I don't know, he just didn't seem to work in the centre attacking mid role. Not sure why, not that you can see all of his attributes, but seemed to have everything, was maybe just a bit physically less gifted compared to Keenan, but just never quite made it. So went out on loan to Zawal and Bologna before we sold him to Gladbach, who sold him to Watford for the same fee in the same season actually, so probably in the January. But he's sort of been in and out of the Watford team. I remember him actually being on the transfer list as well at one point and wondering if I should bring him back, but he's on 27.5k, so he's clearly done okay, just unfortunately not fulfilled as much of the potential as I thought he might do. This is one I've been desperate to look at, and it doesn't make sense to anyone who hasn't seen most of the series. Rick van der Linden, so he's a new gen. He came in our second season, but he just appeared. He wasn't, I think it was pretty early on the second season, well, maybe like the July or August. He wasn't from a youth academy or anything, he was just hanging around as a free transfer. So we sort of gave him some game time, brought him off the bench and stuff like that as much as possible. He actually made 22 appearances in the league starting in the Eredivisie that season, but just our lack of facilities really cost us, which is a massive shame because he could have been pretty good. He came in as like a 15-year-old. And he didn't look that different to this, truth be told. He maybe had a bit less mentally and a tiny bit less physically, but technicals are pretty similar. So yeah, it's a massive shame. Really wish for more for him, but it wasn't to be. Scottish failure Mark McCluskey was our record signing at the time, £8 million in the 24-25 season from Motherwell. Didn't do an awful lot. I didn't really give him much of a chance. 4 starts, 4 sub appearances in the following season, 2 starts, 2 sub appearances, all within the league. In terms of those stats, did absolutely nothing in those games. No assists, no goals. Shipped him out for 4.8 million, so an instant loss on him. Like a season later, like a year later, basically, to Rennes. And he's now, I mean, his attributes haven't changed. He always looked that good, just never performed. Now worth 20 million, so that was probably a failure on my part. And of course there are a million other players who I've not covered, so let me know if you want to see anyone else. But we get into some of our history now. So first season, I mean, we had a terrible start, and we finished 15th in that first season, struggling to find a tactic. We were half amateur, half professional. It was a pain. It was a real pain. Following 2 seasons, we got into the playoffs as a result of winning one of the periods in the Upper League. Finished 9th in the first season, 10th in the second season, but never looked anywhere near good enough to win any of the playoff games, and never did. So that was a bit of a shame, but then did follow up by dominating the league in the 2021 season. 2020-2021 season. Finished 6th in that first season in the Eredivisie. We actually looked like we might have a title challenge on for most of it. We can probably actually now jump to the Eredivisie League and have a look. Yeah, if you look at the points totals, we finished 6th with 58 points, and we were not far off the title for a lot of that. We just started to throw it away for the final third of the season. But we did win the European playoffs, so we did end up in the Europa League for the first time, which is exceptional work in our first season up. Followed up by winning the league to Vitesse by 2 points. I remember it being quite tight, but we managed to put it away. There were times we looked like we were going to throw it away, but second season in top flight, a win for Oss, like winning a title, incredible work. We then dropped off massively in the next season. I know Heerenveen was superb, but we were just not at the races at all. We tried the World Champions League football and just struggled, and ended up missing out on Champions League football altogether for the following season. This was the year we went out horrifically in Europa League to Benfica thanks to a Boghosian last-minute penalty, which will probably stay with me forever. We then reclaimed the title the following season, only 1 point in it this time to Vitesse, but we kind of held them at arm's length and just, I don't know, let them back in a bit, but we never looked like losing it. Same story for the following season. They finished 3 points behind, but it should have been a lot more. So lots of Champions League football, and obviously in the current season we've just dominated the league. Looking back on some of our European football, so our first season in Europa League, got to the first knockout round, went out to Lyon, who are actually pretty good, so that's no shame at all. Champions League, we went out immediately in a horrible group, Kiev, Leipzig and City, which is awful. Went through against Valencia and Austria Vienna, but then went out to Benfica, as I said, last minute penalty here, missed by Boghosian, was truly horrible. Yeah, I hate every moment of thinking about that. We then failed massively in Europa League the following season, a really easy group, and I did consider throwing in the towel, but decided to see it through to the end of 10 seasons, and things didn't get much better. Didn't go through. Went through to the Europa League in a group containing Dynamo, Napoli and Dortmund, going out in the Champions League, so third place, and then lost out to Standard in the Europa League, which was awful. So to go out in the second knockout round against Standard last season, to getting to the semi-final this season in the Champions League is such an improvement, and beating Chelsea twice in fact was a real highlight. Beating Valencia coming from behind there, that 1-1 draw against Bayern gave us a load of hope, but then we just didn't show up for that second leg, unfortunately. And the final thing I want to look at in terms of Oss really for now is our KMVB, because we've taken so long in this video, is our KMVB Becker performance. So first season went out in the first round, which is awful. Got to it was only the quarterfinal. I thought we got to the semi-final in that second season, but clearly I'm just a massive liar. Went out to Vitesse in the quarterfinal 4-3. I think it was an easier game in the semi-final, should we have got there though, but decent effort. Third season, second round. Fourth season was the semi-final. Okay, so that was when we were in the Upper League. So yeah, we did get through to the semi-final when we were in the second division. I wasn't making up, but a terrible loss to Vitesse, but no harm done because we've gotten back over the years. It did take us a while to actually get anywhere in the KMVB Becker. It was only last season where we actually won it for the first time. Pretty easy route to the final as well, and then you look at it this year, similar except we had Ajax in there, and Vitesse are easier than they look. 12-1 win against UNA is pretty good though, right? One of the things I find most interesting is the Premier League. It's only this season where we've seen a team retain it for the first time since Sir Alex Ferguson was in charge of Man U. It's been just everywhere basically. So no continuity there. Is now dominated by new gens at Woodby and Ben Woodburn apparently. When we look at past winners of the Champions League, it's kind of gone a bit everywhere. It's a lot of the sort of second sort of tier teams that you'd expect to see, without meaning to sound offensive. So Dortmund, Inter, Atletico to an extent, but probably not. Monaco and Valencia have all won it recently. And then if you look at the Europa League, it's a similar sort of story. No one overly surprising there really. Liverpool, Sporting, Leverkusen, Spurs, Leipzig, Lyon and Schalke. Maybe a slightly weird team to see. Perhaps even Sporting really, considering how good some of the new gens are becoming these days. But pretty standard stuff. And then World Cups, there's only been 3, so Italy won 2018, France 22, and Germany 26, Croatia finishing as runners-up in 26, Romania in 2022, and Spain in 2018. Yeah, that Romania one's a bit strange, but we've seen weirder things in real life World Cups, I suppose, recently. We leave the club with £96 million, a ton of money in the transfer budget, a ton of money in the wage budget. If you look at the reserves, we've got talent for years potentially. If you look at some of the age of these guys, there's a lot of teenagers in there. Not many players over the age of 20. It's crazy. So we'll see how the AI gets on with it. There's a load of potential as well, so hopefully they look after the squad, but I guess we will find out in 10 seasons. In terms of things that I've learnt during the series about myself and how I play Football Manager, and it's actually really relevant to how I used to play Football Manager as well, is I've always gone for a younger team. I've always enjoyed getting new gens in ahead of actual players. I feel like you get more narrative, you can make your own story around the players. However, the issue you do have is, unless you go really deep into a save, I'm 10 seasons in and my oldest player is 27. He's only been really kept around Michael Marta for a lot of sentimental reasons. He's pretty good, he does a job in the Eredivisie, but we could have done better. And if you look at our eldest players apart from that, we've got a 24-year-old and then a few 23-year-olds, a couple of 22, 21, and then you really start getting into most of these players can't tutor, really, can they? If you look at it, is anyone over the age of 23, and there's 7, 8, 9 players there. Now it's only the last year or so. Obviously, a lot of these players have been the core of the squad for a while now. So Romero's been here a little bit, Suarez has been here a little bit. Suarez isn't even 23, so I've gone too far down. Boghossian, Julio Cesar, Burnett, Marta. So there's only a few of them really that could do tutoring, and out of all those, I don't think any of them have particularly good personalities or determination. If I pick out Boghossian as an example, determination 13, fairly loyal personality, so it's not too bad, but you could do a lot better. And it did take me a number of years in this Osse before I actually brought in some seasoned pros. I haven't done it this season, but I did it for the previous 2 seasons where I just brought in a load of 33, 34-year-olds on backup contracts up to $2,000 a week, with very good personalities and good determination, to try and get some of the youngsters just tutored or get them those better personalities to really kick on and develop properly. But when I look back, I've sort of figured out that's one of the issues I've had in previous games. You eventually end up with a team so good for the new gens that you just dominate, but really I could do stuff a lot faster. If I was focusing on bringing in some older heads earlier, then tutoring wouldn't have been as much of a problem, and I still wouldn't have had to sacrifice playing new gens only. I could have just done it from the offhand elder statesman, so to speak. But I didn't, and I feel like I've learned a lesson, and maybe next time I'll heed my own words and warning. Something else I've learned, these are all really obvious things if you think about it, but in my first season, I think I was going for a tactic somewhat like this. If I put it on screen, it was meant to, I think it was something like this from memory. I might be wrong. I think that was it. It was like a 4-4-2 diamond, but with advanced wing backs. And the idea was we had a target man, we had a couple of big guys in the middle, we'd hoof it along to Wimbakila, who was our target man at the time. Basically, the tactic has changed so much. Very quickly it became just a regular diamond. I think we kept that for a little bit and then started playing wingers a bit later on. We ended up with something like this for a while, I believe. And then eventually even dropped down to a 4-3-3, I think we did, or 4-5-1, however you want to put it. We played a few tactics in those first 3 seasons. Season 3 especially, we played about 6 or 7 different tactics, all with loads of different team instructions. It was really confusing. And it's really obvious that you should stick with a tactic for a little bit. I think the advice given really is 10 games or so you should stick with it, and then you can start to decipher what's wrong with it and if you can actually work it into your regular tactic or not. I ended up going for this variety, my regular I call it a 4-4-2. It's described as a 4-1-1-4, but it plays out very much as a 4-4-2. The defensive mid stays around the defensive mid area, but pushes up enough to be of use in attacking moves. The centre mid on attack starts moves off, plays out wide, plays into strikers, then gets into the box. The wingers are more up and down than you'd expect them to be. Then the wing backs, how they've been set up with I mean, you can't see it now because I changed the formation around, but the opposition instructions, sorry. I mean, for example, this is one I had saved and it's even got the defensive mid in the wrong place. But you can see the opposition instructions on the fullbacks are just pretty heavy. So with the support function, they always get forward a bit more than a regular sort of defensive fullback, but they don't provide that much support further up the pitch. They perhaps go in line with the centre mid at most, which is kind of what I want them to do. It allows the wingers to really kick on. I feel like that's been one of our strengths, as well as the centre-backs always been told to play it simple and fewer risky passes. So we play it nicely and short around these areas, like the back sort of 6 or 7 players. And then if options aren't on, traditionally we've hoofed it, and by that point, if options aren't on, it means we've been pushed, so we managed to get people around the back quite a lot. But it took me a few years before I established that's what I was going to do, and that's how I was going to play the game. I guess the advice to future me and anyone else playing Football Manager is do stick with a tactic. Sometimes real life doesn't go into Football Manager, unfortunately. Obviously try and recreate a tactic if you want, I'm not discouraging that at all. But in my experience, don't necessarily try and play the match engine, but sometimes some of the more obvious things you think wouldn't work do work. For example, something I noticed in team instructions, all my team instructions have gone now for some horrible reason. But I would normally, like recently, have had push higher, close down, prevent short goalkeeper distribution, retain possession on mixed, exploit the middle. This has sort of been my setup, and then I put it on control. But strangely, things like counter, if you literally just leave it the same but have on counter, it will still work, and it will work really well as well. As much as you think counter with a higher line doesn't make much sense, but it's to do with the match engine and how each mentality is kind of like what's been described as a risk modifier. I think it was Busternet said that. So on counter, for example, you'll only instigate attacks if you've got a man or 2 over or something like that. It doesn't make sense that you have a high defensive line but counter works, but it does. Just things like that do work sometimes, and I was guilty of not giving my own team a chance often enough, I suppose, and those are some of the things I've learned. Something else I've got to think about going forward is my scouting team. So I've been guilty of this in my Tortuga Pirate save, as well as probably this one to an extent early on. Not that it really matters now, but I mean, if you look at the scouting team or staff team, I've always liked to max out my staff allocations at all times. It just makes me feel more secure. Obviously, a lot of them can get involved in training as well. First team coaches and then reserve team coaches, managers, all that stuff. They all can do first team training. And sometimes I'm guilty of bringing someone in just because I can, rather than someone who's improving things. You can't, like when you get a few seasons into a save, you kind of go onto autopilot to an extent, and the whole renewing the contract is horrible. The autopilot of hiring players can be a bit of a nightmare. As well as that, something I keep doing as well, I like to hire new gen coaches, which I think everyone likes to do. We all like the new gens in all their aspects, but sometimes they're not the best, and I probably don't pay enough attention to things like personalities. I'll pick someone at random out now and we'll see what personality they have, but really you want to be going for something like professional or anything along those lines, determined. So this guy's a senior squad coach. I don't even know where the personalities are. That's how ridiculous this is. Where are you? Okay, so this guy's fairly determined. It took a while to find that. But things like that are just pure. It's been pure guesswork for me, and that's not really good enough. We should be doing a lot better than that, than just picking some at random. To be fair, this guy came in what looks like the first season and is fairly loyal, which is okay, but you still want to be doing better than that. And after 10 years at a club, you'd think you'd have found the right staff to just have a professional outlook, and that's something I'm going to have to bear in mind for future saves. Obviously, I'm still playing my Newcastle save at the moment. That's kind of just a bit of fun though before FM19, so I'm not hugely fussed by that. But something I do want to do in FM19 is I want to do a Youth Academy challenge with Southend Manor. I'll be writing about it and hopefully learning a few bits. But obviously there, with coaches and stuff behind the scenes, it's going to be really important to get the right personalities and exactly the right things, attributes, things like your head of youth development. This has taken me years to find someone like this, for example. I mean, working with the youngsters is great. He's fairly professional, which is fine, but you'd want better. I mean, you want better judging player ability and potential, really. We'll have what we get and like it in the 9th tier of England next season, but it's just things to think about, like I only really started taking this seriously in like 2021. Even then, I could have done better since then. So clearly, I've got a lot to learn about behind the scenes management. But in general, I do like how I play the game. I managed to get through it quite quickly with relative success. With most of the teams I play as, there were stages in this save early on where I did struggle. If you have seen that, then wow, I really apologise for the quality. It hasn't improved a great deal, but I feel like I'm a lot better with my delivery, and obviously the quality of the actual Football Manager is pretty good. New laptop really helps there. But yeah, it's been a long slog, but I feel like we've been successful. Could have been more successful in 10 seasons, but it is what it is. I've really enjoyed it. It's really going to stick out as one of my favourite saves ever, which probably assisted by the fact that it's my first ever YouTube save. So I'll go through it again one day and hopefully just enjoy it for what it is. But if you have enjoyed that and you are looking forward to 10 seasons in the future with FC Oss, please do drop a like and a sub on the channel. It will really help me out if you've enjoyed it. There's more FM content coming your way. There's always Newcastle stuff, and then we got a few ideas for YouTube series for FM19 as well. So as always, thank you very much for watching.